Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero, the Dew Sweeper. You're listening to the Tour Coach Podcast, giving you insights into golf instruction at the highest level, from on the PGA Tour to our learning center at Frederica Golf Club. So sitting in with me here on the Tour Coach is James Oh. And one of the things I like to do on these podcasts is obviously I've, talked to a bunch of different teachers and people I see on tour, but also to explore and get to know more people that as I go through stuff on social media, I see people teaching that I find to be interesting and fascinating and people that I see doing a hell of a job. James, thanks so much for sitting in. You're certainly one of them. We've got some mutual acquaintances, and I've become a big follower of yours on social media. Love the stuff you're doing out there, especially with short game. I mean, I think you're going to be somebody everybody hears a whole bunch about, so I'm looking forward to chatting.
Great, Tony. Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Well, tell me a little about your journey to becoming a teacher. That's what question I kind of always start with teachers and teachers that are dealing with tour players, because I don't think any of us start out teaching golf to work with tour players. I think we start teaching golf because we love teaching. I know I did. I still like teaching juniors and developing players of all abilities. How did you get going down this road?
Definitely. I played myself. I played on the web for over 10 years. I played on the PGA Tour, but, I had a very rough patch in my playing career. I needed money. And I wasn't good at anything. And I go, well, I can mentor some kids. I can mentor some kids and get them kind of going in the right direction. And I started out doing a lot of playing lessons and a lot of mental stuff, not too technical. I mean, young kids, you help them with their setup and their grip a little bit and say, hey, you see that ball, go chase it, hit it, and do it quickly. And I've always been big on that. And that's kind of how the journey started. And I realized by the time, my last, I think, event that I ever played with is I played in, it was like 2010 or 12, I can't remember. But I've been teaching for about 15 years now. And that experience of having played personally kind of got, some better players, some good juniors, college players, and you work with them long enough and they became tour players and went off to play on the PGA Tour. So that's my short story.
Another question I like is, especially for folks that have played at a high level and played the tour, when you look back on your playing, what type of stuff do you take, like, especially the things that maybe as you look back and you're like, oh, if I'd have known this when I played, maybe I would have played better or played longer. What kind of things do you take from that and also help players? Because I see, like, obviously you got a bunch of good players, but I see on your Instagram and from knowing folks, like, I mean, I know when you're up there, I think it's in New York. I mean, you've got folks of all abilities coming to help you. So how do you take that stuff and apply it, the things maybe you wish you knew then to help golfers now?
Absolutely. I mean, I've made so many mistakes, and I realized it so much later in my teaching and playing career. I mean, I've had so many high-level players that, would kind of have a chat with me, and they're I remember Corey Paving saying, like, I grew up, I idolized him growing up, and he had an incredible short game, still does, and we played a couple rounds together in Florida, like a Thursday, Friday round. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, okay, I barely know this guy, but what is he saying? He goes, hey, I looked up, this was on Friday after Thursday. He says, I looked up your putting stats and, you're like dead last. And I never thought of it that way. I just assumed that I was a good putter. And I've always historically been a great putter, but I've focused so much of my time in a year on other parts of my game that was quote unquote bad, that I just let it deteriorate without me even knowing. Yeah. So I was searching so hard. I didn't have a steady coach. I didn't have a steady plan. I didn't, all those little things that are really important, I couldn't stick to it. And, I had another guy at the time I was on staff with Callaway, and I'd see Phil Mickelson a lot. He's like, hey, I asked him, I was like, do you have any advice for me? He's like, yeah, you have to do what you do. Don't try to redevelop yourself as this new PGA Tour player and this new young player, and you're going to be perfect, and you're going to hit the gym 9 days a week, and 9 times a week. Like don't, take it slowly. Just do what you've been doing and kind of refine that. And at the time, I'm like, I didn't know what that meant because, you know, when I started, in my mind, becoming a tour player is getting a big bag and looking perfect. And, you know, like, I'm not afraid to say it. And I see it every day. And I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, hey, you know, you got to tee that ball up, get it down the fairway, get it in the hole, and you do that quicker than anyone else. That kind of defines you as a tour player. So these little things that are like so obvious, but not at the time, because at the time when I'm making these mistakes, making all these changes and searching, I'm trying to search for the best. I'm trying to do what's best for me. And that's kind of a hard thing to teach and understand. I mean, you see a lot of junior golfers who get really good, or if I see, you know, I said, hey, what's your secret? And there's a common denominator. They've stuck to a plan. They've been kind of doing similar things, making small changes for a very long time. And they just kind of keep the head down and do it for a long time. There's no secret. If there's this like perfect secret shallowing move that if you learn it, you'll get on tour. I mean, gosh, I'd be the first one there. Right.
Yeah, it's not there, right?
Right. So, you know, it's these little things. It's these little small things. I've had a long period in my career where I couldn't look at my swing on video because it was so disgusting to me personally. And now I look back at some of my old videos where, you know, when I was playing pretty well, and I go, yeah, you know, that worked all day. You know, I'd miss a cut for 6 months. Well, couldn't have been that bad. You know, finishing and had some good finishes and played with a lot of confidence. And so those are the things that really stick out in my mind. And, you know, it's very interesting what I told you about my putting, what Corey Pavin said about my putting, like, hey, you're dead last in stats. You can't make a short putt to save your life. And when you think you're good at something, and you can tell me your experience too, when you think you're good at something, you're actually very lenient on yourself. You're not so hard on yourself. When you're not good at something, you'll do something good. Like if you're not good at chipping and we're working on something, you'll hit 9 good and you'll hit 1 bad and you'll, yep, see, there it goes again. Like, you know, there's that. But when you're good at it, guys who are good at it, they can miss one and they just go, no, that's fine. You're going to miss. Golf's tough. So it's a perspective. It's like that little perspective that is simple, yet it's so subconscious. It's such a subconscious thing. And I think that's a huge lesson.
Well, I think one thing I've always noticed, and this isn't like a scientific study, but you know, to me, you go to like, heck, I went and watched, you know, some of the SEC championship in Seattle. I had a freshman playing in it past week, and you look at like the SEC, you go to an ACC, you know, you go to these major, like, man, and I watched one out in California that was on TV a week ago. Like, man, the golf swings are phenomenal, right?
Yep.
And then you go, it's like each level you go up, you see more quirky golf swings, but swings that work for people, right? And it's like, you know, you walk across, you know, you watch major, like the top 10 schools in the country. Seems like every kid out there now has what you would call like a perfect golf swing that everybody's putting up on Instagram, right? But then when you go to the PGA Tour, I mean, you see the Daniel Bergers, you see some Lucas Glovers, you see some this, you see some that, right? Like some Jordan Spieth. Like, to me, and then the one theme through everything you've been talking about is you kept bringing up little things. And I think that's the area that people that want to get better overlook. Is I think everybody's looking for a big thing. And like, to me, once you can find the face and you can kind of control where it's going and you know what it's going to do each time, then really your job mechanically is kind of done. It's the little things. Right. You know, I mean, I think so many. I had a player that I taught for 11, 12 years recently just leave me, like from high school all the way to the PGA Tour. Like, these people get out there and they get this search where, like, it's got to be something we're missing. And sometimes we're not missing anything, I think. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's just hard, right?
Yeah, golf's hard, just like anything else. You try to do anything at, you know, the best that you can do it in the world. If you're trying to be the 200th best donut baker in the world, Yeah, it's going to require a lot of work. You've got to, and there's no secret recipe. Like, you're not going to find that online. And there's not going to be, and then you talk to the famous chefs. I've read a lot of books about, people who are good at their job. And what you'll find is they're like, I went into this search where I just wrote everything down, and I did it for like 12 hours a day for like 12 years. And then, here I am. I have 100 stores, and I'm really famous. Yeah. And it's like as if there's some secret, as this, it's almost like a sick obsession of, wow, you're still sticking to your thing, and you're still continuing to, like, are you not going to fix that backswing? And it's like, why? Right. Yeah, it might be not aesthetically perfect, but it gets the ball, hitting the fairways and greens higher than any other PGA Tour player, percentage-wise, and, that speaks highly in itself right there. And it's like kind of having the mindset and the team and the understanding and, like, knowing what it takes to develop that mindset. I think that's where, like, someone with experience, like your experience, can look at a golf swing and go, yep, that'll work. Now we got to work on practicing what you just did, whatever that is, quote unquote, 100%.
And one of my good friends that do a lot of stuff with Dr. Greg Carton always says, like, once you get to a point, you don't need to get better. You need to get better at accessing that more often. And I think that's our challenge as coaches to help. But I think that's the challenge as a coach also, is that when it's not going well and you've missed 4 cuts in a row and things are spiraling and you're 150 on the money list, the art of coaching is to help the person realize they're still on the right track.
No doubt.
That's hard sometimes. It's
very hard. It's very hard. And, I think when I started coaching, and I remember this very vividly, when I started and I couldn't get, as a coach, I couldn't get my point across to the other player, I would search really hard trying 25 different things. And what I realized watching a lot of great coaches like yourself, I mean, for me now, less is more. I have the confidence to show up to a tour event and say, yeah, that looks pretty good. And it's kind of like, well, coach, why'd I fly you out here? Well, you flew me out here so I could tell you that it's pretty good, and it's still good, and it worked last week, and it worked 2 weeks ago, and, it's a lot better than a year before. And that, for me to tell you this story again, that's why I'm out here.
Don't you think, like, and I watch a lot of the stuff you put out, I think that the majority of the stuff that as coaches that we do that's really productive, we do away from a tournament and off weeks, right? I think that obviously we go to tournaments and it's part of the culture now. Being a tour coach, you got to do it. But, like, really working on stuff, and really if you need to change or you need to say, hey, we're going to hit the reset button and go back to what we did, like, most of that stuff I think is most effectively done away from a tournament.
Absolutely. And it's where the amateurs, when I work with amateurs and the higher handicappers, they go from hitting bunker shots really bad for 10 years. And then, we do a bunker lesson during a clinic 4 hours long, and they're like hitting great bunker shots. And they go, hey, I'll call you tomorrow because I've got my Saturday morning match. And it's like, that's the mindset, right? Like they want to do it well right then and there, right away in their Saturday morning match, where opposed to, great tour players, they work really hard for smaller gains, and they already set themselves up to win. They know it's not going to be perfect right away. They know it's going to take, years, and that's the hard part, right? Like, how do you,
right?
Like, no one wants to do that for years, but you've been playing golf for years. You've been hitting bad bunker shots for 10 years. I've worked with a lot of guys who've sliced the ball for 25 years of their life, and they're like, yeah, I just don't want to draw it anymore. They go, I do, but I don't, because it's too much work, and I know what I need to do. And I said, like, whoever told you anything about your golf swing, about like, yeah, you probably need to come more inside with the face shut, they're probably right. I don't love the mental approach of like how you kind of put it in practice and trying to do it that way, but whatever they said about, your shoulders and your hips and your club and your path and your arms, I probably agree. I rarely disagree, but it's the approach of like, okay,
correct.
Not getting overly frustrated after one little bad shot and like it's the end of the world and then going, oh, that doesn't work. You know, like how consistently did you try this? And, you know, I think those are really important things.
Well, I think I said this talking to Dana Dahlquist on the podcast, and, you know, he was another teacher that's gotten really popular out there, does a hell of a job, does a lot of online stuff, and I was curious. I wanted to hear, you know, what he looks for in a golf swing in a perfect world, and I love that question. But, but I also said, like, I think all of us nowadays with technology have access to most of the same information, right? Like, I don't think anybody's figured out some secret. I mean, there's some maestros and stuff out there that think they got the world. Everybody thinks they got the world solved, but I just don't think that. I think everybody's got access to mostly the same information now, and it's ways of communicating and coaching it. What are the things in the golf swing that, like, if you take a junior and you can kind of mold them? What are the things that you think are important if you had a perfect student?
I get them working the ball at a very early age. And that's really going against the grain of what everyone wants now, from my experience. I mean, I do hundreds of interviews of like, hey, will you coach my child? I go, well, let's have a chat. And, you know, what they want and what I want as a coach is like completely different. I want to see them train their eyes. And this is for young juniors. You know, I want to see them train their eyes. Like, learn to see that low cutting shot. Learn to see the low draw. Learn to see the high cut. Learn to see the spinner, and like learn to run the ball around the golf course and become a little bit more of an artist and organically learn where the club needs to be, opposed to perfect grip, perfect setup, perfect backswing, and you try to hit the ball straight, and you can hit it. You can do it most of the time, but when you don't know how to do it, when it doesn't go well, you have no idea where the ball is going. You have no idea why the ball's drawing 3 yards instead of cutting. Like, that's, you know, I think they're on the search for this perfect, like, if they get their position perfectly correct, that the ball will go dead straight. And it's actually, you know, it's not really like that. It's kind of like understanding the combination of what and when, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree, because, like, you know, boiling it down to, like, teaching junk, like, I mean, if people can learn to control the path and the face and understand what that does to the ball, however they do it and think about it, I mean, they're going to be able to play the game, right? Because, like, if you could start matching that up and you understand what you've got to, you know, what you've got to do, you know, and I was fortunate, taught a school with Bill Harmon, and Billy was talking about how his dad would say, ball's an inanimate object, so it's not going to move unless that club face hits it, right?
Right.
So if you can learn to match that face up, and I love that, because I think the more instead you teach kids, or anybody wanting to get better, to get away from being so mechanical, but understand what the face and the path have to do to hit different shots, they're going to be, among other things, they're going to be more self-sufficient also when they're on the golf course.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's this beauty too when I see a young junior and they're pretty good, and I go, okay, what can I help you with? And like, oh, well, you know, I draw the ball too much and I can't hit a cut. And usually the parents will say that. The kids at a young age, they don't say that unless they've been brainwashed. And I'll go, okay, we'll go on the lesson tee, or like we'll go out and play a few holes. Like, all right, like let's see you hit a cut. And they'll aim down the left side and hit this like little cut, and I go, well, that's a cut. And the parent will say, well, like, they've never learned how to hit a cut. They don't really know how to do it correctly. I go, that's about as correct as ever going to get. Yeah. Because, you know, officially, they actually know how to hit a cut. They go, like, no, you got this wrong. They've never learned this. I go, no, they've learned this. They can't explain. Like, they can't explain when you make a right turn, like, how much do you push the brake pedal and how much do you hit the accelerator and how many degrees you turn the wheel. They can't explain exactly, but they can make a right turn perfectly, and they can make a left turn too. Like, you don't know. I mean, our life depends on it. You can't tell me how many degrees it turns. I mean, in theory, but I believe 100%. In like good golf is kind of understanding the combination of how to make a right turn. You know, how much do you input the brake? How much do you input? Like, when do you do it? Like, what's considered safe? And just taking all of those things into consideration. And making that right. And not only that, it's like, you travel to a new week, you rent a car, you get a different car, and you have the confidence to do that. It's like, yeah, you kind of figure it out. Like, understanding that combination is really important to me of like the way I teach golf, opposed to it's got to be here, 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 and here.
Right.
And when you don't learn it correctly and you like accidentally don't turn the wheel enough, you're going to hit the curb. You're going to hit the curb, and that's really bad. That's really, really bad.
What about when a tour player or maybe an aspiring young tour player comes to you, right? I know you get a lot of those. I've seen some of the folks you work with, and I get them as well. And they come to you, and they're out of college, and they're, hey, been playing a year or two, and I haven't gotten where I'm trying to get to. I feel like I'm lost. I need somebody. We need somebody to get us over the hump, right, or to get us to another level. Where do you start with that guy? What's your first thoughts?
Well, you go out and watch them play, and then you put that up against what they think about their own game, because usually there's a disconnect. I haven't found too many like young good players trying to get over the hump where they spend a lot of time where they need to, opposed to they think they need to work on this part of their game, and they think they're not good at this part of it, and they think they're great at this part of the game. It's like, well, you're actually not that bad at what you think you're bad at, and you're not that good as you think you are at what you're good at. So again, you give yourself the most leeway on things you think you're good at, and when that doesn't pan out, when you think you're a great like ball striker and you're not gaining a lot of strokes from tee to green, well, what's your strength? Like, how are you going to lose strokes in putting and still win a golf tournament? Like,
you're not.
You're not going to. You're like, and I mean, that's a simple analogy, but I mean, I think that's the hardest part, because they've ingrained themselves in their mind so long that I'm good at this, bad at this, and this is what I need to work on. I think great players have they're very correct in their analysis. Their whole team, their coach, their caddy, their mental guy, like everyone's on the same page. They go, yep, we need to make one more putt from a certain distance for 4 rounds every week this next year. Like, that's the goal. Like, trying to make one more 4-footer for a golf tournament, and it's, they're very accurate about that, opposed to, no, I'm a great putter, I don't miss. You're ranked 180th in 4-footers. You're not a great 4-foot putter, So it's kind of understanding where you really are.
I think it's important too, is that there's so many ways to do it now, right? There's so many ways to be successful. I always say one of the things I'm most proud of is, if you look at the guys I coach, they all swing different and they all have different formulas for success. And I think that a young player understanding that, or anybody trying to get better for that matter, is understand that you don't have to be Bryson DeChambeau off the tee to be very successful. I mean, you don't have to be Jordan Spieth at 20 feet to be. So you've got to, but my job is to help them with that equation, figure out with what they do, where do we need to improve the formula to make it add up to a tour card or $2 million or a win or whatever it is.
Right. And that's really hard to do because of, what's already ingrained in your head. Like if you're rail thin and in your mind you're overweight, then like the physical part is not a big of an issue. It's a big issue, but like the mental imagery part of like what you think of yourself. I mean, you're going to live your life in a way where you think you're overweight, but you're actually like you have malnutrition and not eating enough. So I think that's such a big deal.
Yeah, how they view themselves and how they view their games. I like that. I think that's some really good insight. Talk for a few minutes here before we wrap it up about short game. You do some amazing short. That's kind of where I started watching you a lot. I started really watching some stuff. I know, seen some stuff you've done like with Jazz and some of the guys on social media, and it's impressive stuff. Talk a little about your philosophy and your thoughts on short game, because I think it's a little different. I mean, I'm not saying it's earth-shattering different, but it is different than a lot of people try. Right. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, a lot of the stuff that I put on social media is for like the 99% of the world. It's definitely not for the guy who can already hit the spinner or, you know, who has great short game. It's actually for the guy who, you know, can't get out of the bunker and they already set up. I mean, the things that like really stick out in amateur golfers' mind, if they're not get out of the bunker, is, you know, they have this wicked wild setup with the club face super open, they're leaning, and it's like, just stand up over the ball normal. I don't even know what that means anymore, but, you know, let's start there. Let's start, you know, where you're not trying to use the bounce. Like, what if we didn't use the bounce out of the bunker? Now, that's a pretty bad concept, but if you're like throwing the club and you're missing the ball and you're swiping across it and you're hitting 6 inches behind the ball, and then you're swinging so hard because you're hitting so far behind the ball that if you catch the ball that it goes over the green into the yard,
correct.
Like, you know, that's a big thing, like what's already in your head about like bunker concepts. You know, I teach a lot of concepts of where you need to be. It's not so much an exact, and you know, a lot of times, and it's just kind of like, hey, let's start there, and you know, try that for a year. You'll hit. And I think the common answer that I hear is like, well, that's not a bunker setup. I go, you know what? Screw the bunker. Let's just not let's do the setup wrong. Let's not do the bunker setup, and let's just hit the ball out every time.
Yeah.
So,
but and I think that you know, look, that obviously great players use the bounce. Like, I think that like a lot of golfers already have a lot of throw and clubhead throwaway, and I mean, them trying to do more of that isn't going to make them a better bunker player or a better chipper in particular, right? And there's also great chippers out there that can use the bounce, but also get leaned on their left, and they you know, have some shaft lean. I mean, when, you know, 80% of the time when they don't need the bounce. You know?
Right. No, absolutely. And it's kind of like what I'm trying to help people, most of the golfers in the world, it's what's a good starting point? I'm trying to help them become, so, you know, I don't think Lucas Glover today started his first day as a child hitting bunker shots and hitting like, I mean, he's unbelievable around the greens, hitting shots exactly like that the first day he's ever picked up a club. He's developed into this, but like his mindset and, you know, there's so many like little things, right? But I think if he would have started where he was on YouTube and, you know, his first golf lesson picking up a club is like, you got to do this, this, and this, and then we're going to try this, and you get his club way open, and it's like he's just missing the ball all the time. I don't know if he would be here today. I don't know.
And I think that YouTube and some of that stuff, that's one thing I like, is your stuff is applicable to a variety of golfers, right? And, you know, just putting a bunch of swings out there that are all tour players, I don't know that helps a bunch of regular golfers, you know.
Right.
Because they can't do it, you know. But I think helping people understand that there's a lot of different ways to do it's valuable.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, tight lie into the grain and it's wet. What do? I don't know, putt it. I think that's the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. James, this is awesome. I really enjoyed chatting with you. Enjoyed the opportunity we've had to talk as I've gotten to see you around and stuff. Let everybody know real quick, too, like where they can find you, because you got some great stuff out there, and it'd be great for any golfer of any level also that wants to come get some help.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Tony. Yeah, you can follow me on James O Golf on Instagram and jamesogolf.com.
Awesome. James, great stuff. Looking forward to catching up with you soon. Hopefully we find an opportunity to teach some folks together down the road here. And
that'd be so much fun.
Have some fun. All right, buddy. Take care. Thanks for sitting there with me.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Tour Coach with Tony Ruggiero. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this podcast. You can stay up to date because we have weekly episodes coming your way with fascinating people in the world of golf instruction at the highest level. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. If you want to learn more about Tony, head over to dewsweepersgolf.com to get all the details on what he's up to. Maybe you want to see him, grab a lesson, or go to one of his camps, pick up his book, Lessons from the Legends. You can do that there. If you want to see Tony in action with some videos and other content, head over to golfsciencelab.com/Tony. Tony to get more info there. This episode was powered by the Golf Science Lab and was edited, mixed, and produced by Just Hit Publish Productions.
We go into year 2 of the Tour Coach. It wouldn't be possible without the support of all our sponsors. And I've had some great ones. And one of the things that I'm most proud of in my career and in my business is the fact that all of my relationships here and all these sponsorships have been long withstanding relationships, haven't jumped from sponsor to sponsor and manufacturer to manufacturer. And I've always prided ourselves in special relationships and when people work together, support each other, and we've all put out great products for the benefits of everybody else. So I want to give a special thanks to these folks that have been with me for such a long time, and that would be the folks at Srixon, Cleveland Golf, and Zexio. Couldn't ask for a better manufacturer to be aligned with, and not only do they put out great product and great support, but they're first-class people, and they believe in what we're doing here on the Tour Coach and with the Dew Sweepers, and also Vineyard Vines. Ian, Shep, TJ, and all the folks at Vineyard Vines. Hard to keep me looking good, but they do a fantastic job, and they're like family. They support everything on the Dew Sweepers, and we're so proud to be affiliated with and support the folks at Vineyard Vines. So if you're out there, you're listening to the Tour Coach, please support our sponsors, Srixon, Cleveland Golf, Zexio, as well as Vineyard Vines, and keep listening and keep enjoying hanging out with us here on the Tour Coach.